President Trump has been pretty quiet this past week, mostly because he's lost his ability to use social media, a decision that sparked plenty of controversy, as Lee Cowan explains.
A decade ago, this very month, in Cairo's Tahrir Square, social media was being praised. Its role as an organizing tool during those pro-democracy rallies had many calling the Arab Spring the Facebook revolution instead. But for all its glowing promise, we quickly learned that social media is only as good as how it's used.
The major difference between now and then is more than ever before, our experiences on social media are determined by hidden decisions made by the social media companies themselves.
That's what's changed.
That's what's changed.
Ramesh Srinivasan was in Cairo back then, researching how Twitter and Facebook were giving voice to the voiceless.
It used to be something more of an open pipe.
He's now an author and professor at UCLA's Department of Information Studies.
What we are seeing when we go online is likely to be that which is most sensational or inflammatory. They're predicting whatever is most likely to grab people's attention.
And the past 4 years have proven that lies and conspiracy theories are unfortunately more engaging than the truth.
And the danger in that is what?
The danger is it's going to present us with an extremely distorted view of reality. The fringe becomes the new normal.
You're fired.
That is a study in the Trump presidency. His reality TV roots taught him controversy gets ratings, and he used his social media feeds in much the same way. No one has a bigger bully pulpit than the President of the United States, and no one before Mr. Trump used it with such abandon online. The attack on the Capitol changed all that. After years of defending his presence on their platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and other social media giants booted Mr. Trump, claiming he incited a riot. Amazon removed an entire site from its servers, Parler, which had become the place favored by many conservatives. Deplatformed was a word we learned a lot about this past week.
I think big tech has made a terrible mistake and very, very bad for our country. They shouldn't be doing it, but there's always a counter move when they do that.
While many applauded the move, the precedent of shutting out the leader of the free world made many people uncomfortable too. It's a huge power to wield, one that is currently held in the hands of a very few. It's not a new argument. The CEOs of the major tech companies have been called on the carpet before.
Who the hell elected you and put you in charge of what the media are allowed to report and what the American people are allowed to hear?
So you won't take down lies, or you will take down lies? I think it's just a pretty simple yes or no.
But claiming big tech is running afoul of the First Amendment by deplatforming those it deems harmful may be missing the larger point.
Is kicking someone off any of these social media platforms an infringement of their free speech rights?
No, it isn't. They're not subject to the First Amendment. They are not the government.
Daphne Keller directs the program on platform regulation at Stanford's Cyber Policy Center. When it comes to digital speech and the First Amendment, she says, it gets messy pretty fast.
This isn't just a free speech argument on the part of users, it's also a free speech argument on the part of the providers as well, right?
People who want to sue platforms and force them to carry speech they don't want to have a double First Amendment problem. First of all, those people don't have a First Amendment claim against the platforms. And second of all, the platforms do have a First Amendment argument against being forced to carry speech they disagree with.
But what if the argument over regulation was reframed, less about speech, and more about changing how big tech exposes us to that speech?
This idea that it's just this free flow of information is false. It's a curated flow of information.
Yael Eisenstadt used to work for Facebook as one of the heads of election integrity, where she saw firsthand just what these companies do with all that content.
It's a business model that is predicated on gathering as much of our human behavioral data as possible to create these little boxes of who we are to then target us with ads.
That's all fine if we're shopping for sneakers, she says, but those same algorithms apply to our politics too. We'll willingly follow ideas that pop up right down the rabbit hole, and those who want their messages to spread know the more controversial, the better.
I don't think that Mark Zuckerberg set out with the idea that I want to create a platform where the most outrageous, salacious, hate-filled speech wins. I don't think that was his goal. But instead of holding the platform responsible for what somebody posts, it's the tools that I want them held responsible for, not the actual speech on the platform, except for, of course, if the speech breaks the law.
But it sounds like what you're saying, though, is that'd be changing the business model, pretty much.
100%.
Big tech has promised more transparency and better enforcement of their own rules when it comes to spreading dis and misinformation. Facebook removed more hate speech this year than ever before. Twitter the same. Even TikTok is being more proactive. But that will likely not be enough going forward. But can we trust them to do this kind of regulation on their own, though?
No, we should not be trusting Twitter or any private company to magically serve the public interest. I think, if anything, the last 4 years have taught us that we can't do that.
A year before the end of his second term, Bill Clinton talked about the challenges of regulating the internet.
That's sort of like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall.
That was over 2 decades ago. Times change, but the value of good stewardship doesn't.
This discussion is about how we want to live, how we want to be as a country and as a people. It's a discussion about our humanity at the end of the day. I do believe that you can force people to tie their actions to beliefs that might be a little more virtuous than their mere bottom lines.